planning who's going to look after us, how are we going to pay for that. Saira, what have you done? I bet you have. You're such an organised
Well, to be honest
girl.
with you, I don't really have to think about it because culturally, and I'm very British, but when it comes to my old age, I'm British Asian. Because in our culture, and this is from, you know, centuries, this is what we do, is that if when our parents get older, we look after our parents. So in my family, my dad died and my mum was left on her own. There was no discussion. She went and lived with my youngest brother, and that's what you do, you go and live with the youngest son. And it just works, it's acceptable. You don't really see that many Asian men and women in, sorry? Oh, sorry. Well done. Yeah. And you don't see that many Asian elderly people in care homes because traditionally we look after them. Now, I'm in a mixed marriage, so my kids could get either way. But even now, I'm saying, Zach and Amara, you know, Mummy's doing a lot of stuff for you, buying all these presents and stuff. And I talk about it very naturally. And Zach said to me the other day, he said, Mummy, when you're older, I'm going to build a little flat for you next to my house.
Build a little flat?
That's not the same as living in your house, is it? but also...
a shed at the bottom of the garden.
But also, I think, so for me, it is a cultural thing, and it's something that I really want to pass down to generations.
You have no question about that. You are growing your children to look after you.
Is it discussed within the children?
Within the family?
Well, it is. We just accept it. It's what we do.
And does it traditionally go to the youngest?
It goes to the youngest, or anybody else who feels that they want to look after it. But it is a traditional thing.
We don't have that.
It's funny because with my father being Middle Eastern, it's the same. You know,
it's a mentality.
And I will and want to look after my parents, but it's strange. I don't want my children to look after me.
Why not?
Because I don't know, and I just feel that it's wrong, and yet that's maybe wrong of me, because if my parents turned around to me and said, I don't want you to look after us, I want you to just do what you want to do, I'd actually be quite hurt,
wouldn't you?
by that. And yet I don't want to think of my children.
So what would your ideal scenario be then?
Probably just take a little boat away somewhere. Wave myself off. What about you?
Me, there's a place called Brinsworth House, and it's a home for old entertainers.
Yes.
And Norman Wisdom was there.
We'll both be there, love.
And I could think of nothing better than being there in my sparkly frock. Old theatre programmes, and my son coming round once a week to see me.
But of course, you see, we're saying all of this, thinking that we're going to be 100% well, compass mentis.
Well, that's the problem.
But what if you've gone past the you know,
I mean,
the place of being able to make your own decisions?
I've prepared financially. I've invested in property, so I intend to just sit on that. That's my pension, so my son will be looked after, so he won't have to worry financially. Exactly. And I must admit, I was 43 when I had Jackson, and I was convinced I was going to die in childbirth. So I rewrote my will the day before I had Jackson.
Did you?
Yeah, just to make sure everything was protected and in place, because my will had been written about 10 years ago. And things change.
But why do you see yourself as a burden? Because you know, your children may want to look after you. You're not going to be a burden,
Jackson's going to be
you?
young as well, because I'm an older mum. He's going to be a young man. And I want him to have freedom, live his life, do everything.
I have a friend who has what she calls a death book.
Oh.
And what it is, it's a book. I know it sounds bizarre, but if you listen to this, I think it's a really good idea. So she's got a book, so if she becomes ill, what her husband has to do. If she becomes so ill that she can't speak or she can't do anything for herself, there's another page of where she can go, who will look after her. When she dies, there's another page of where the money is, how to pay for the funeral, where she wants to be buried.
That's a brilliant idea.
And it sounds terrible, I know.
It's a living will.
Will, but it's pages and pages of... So he knows exactly that he, you know, and at the end of it she's put, and if you want to find somebody else, you must find somebody else.
It's a great idea. It's a great...
Breaks your heart.
What about you?
See, people don't get practical, do they?
Well, I can't with my daughter and I, because... you know, it upsets her, and it's facing it, isn't it?
So you don't talk about it?
No. And with my mum and my dad, I was just thinking about what you were saying. My dad went into a home because he needed 24-hour care. My mother didn't. You know, got her a little flat and she was fine until she died. But we don't do that in this country. And now, listening to you, I tried to look after my dad, but I have to, you know, I've always been a breadwinner. I have to work 24 hours a day to earn money, and I couldn't look after him. Now I feel bad you saying
Oh,
that.
look, it's a cultural thing.
We talk a lot about the will that we'll leave for when we've gone, but it's a great idea to have a living will, because then you can take that... Because I don't want to have these conversations with my mum.
No,
I
I don't
just
want
don't
to
want
have them at all.
Do you think that's
And
just
if
a
I
British
knew-
thing then? Just bury the head in the sand and not
Yes.
talk about it?
I just think it's a human thing, you know. So
Well, you know what?
if you write exactly what you want, then nobody has to be left with those decisions. And you know, I've often thought if I would actually, I'm so worried about being a burden to my children that I don't know whether I would maybe polish
Euthanasia?
myself off.
Nadia, do you know what really upsets me is all those people now where they don't know, nobody goes and visits them
Well,
and
I
they're
was
on
just
their
about
own.
to
That's
say
so
that.
sad.
For more Loose Women action, click here. And I'd subscribe if I were you. It's totally free and it means you'll be kept up to date with new videos and exclusive YouTube content.